Shalom, shalom. Giving all honor and praise to the Most High and His Son, Yahweh Shai. We are the battle axe of the Most High. Come to you on a Sabbath class to get edified in the Most High God's name. Name of the class is called Ordering the Temple. Like I say, we're going to kind of touch on a lot of different history, man. We're going to see how the order was in the temple. Kind of really give brothers and sisters. So just to kind of, when you see certain things in the scriptures, sister, hold y'all peace. When you see certain things in the scriptures in the New Testament, you'll understand why certain things is written like they written. Certain words that brothers and sisters that be saying in the Bible and you don't know what they mean. This is why certain things be read how they read. That's why the Lord tells us to get the understanding of the Bible. To get a good understanding of the Bible, to unlock the history, we got to go precept upon precept. Right? Let's go to Psalm chapter 89 and verse 20. Now this is going into King David. But the Most High God had a lot of love for King David because he already knew King David's heart anyway. Right? So you read, let's get there, I'll read it.
The book of Psalms, chapter 89, verse 20.
I'm over verse 19. I'm like verse 9.
Verse 19.
Verse 18.
Verse 18.
Jump it out.
There's teacher.
Book of Psalms, chapter 89, verse 18.
Mm-hmm.
For the Lord is our defense,
Read.
and the Holy One of Israel is our King.
And the Holy One of Israel is our King, so we can't get this thing twisted. Right? We can't get it twisted. We know King David, he did a good work for the Most High God. Guess what? And you're going to see a lot of similarities in King David and in Moses. That's why the Most High God called King David a seer too, right? But read on.
The Holy One of Israel is our King.
Mm-hmm.
Then thou spakest in vision to thy Holy One,
Read.
and saidest, I have laid help upon one that is mighty.
So guess what? You see the Holy One in capital letter right there, but in 19 he said, thou speakest a vision to the Holy One. That's talking to King David. That's the Lord. Right? Read on.
I have exalted one chosen out of the people.
Read.
I have found David, my servant, with my holy oil. Have I anointed him?
And he anointed King David, right? This is how the Most High God did. So you see the Holy One anointed who? The Holy One, right? He had chose King David to be, king over Israel at that time, right? Because y'all knew the story how Saul was supposed to reign over Israel. Israel wanted a king, but the Holy One of Israel had always been our king. So the Lord said, okay, then, y'all pick y'all a king. They chose Saul. Saul wasn't good enough, so the Most High God. So Most High God sent his son, step in, go pick your king, and that's how he chose King David, right? Let's go to 1 Samuel 13 and 14. I know some of these Bibles, you got to watch, but some of these Bibles have precepts that kind of line up with the next one, but not all. They don't do it all the time. But some of them, you read that, you be like, what the hell are you talking about, Esau? You get there, I'll just read it.
Book of 1 Samuel, chapter 13, verse 14.
So if you read up a little bit, you'll see how the Lord said that Saul didn't keep the commandments, so he chose. So this goes into King David, though. Read on.
But now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord has sought him a man after his own heart.
This was King David they was talking about. A man that was sought after his own heart, man. Read it.
And the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people,
Mm-hmm.
because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded thee.
And this is the same thing that we just read in Psalm chapter 89 and verse 20, going into how the Holy One anointed the Holy One because it was a man after God's own heart, man. They're saying the same thing when you go to Acts chapter 13, saying the same thing. Let's go to Acts chapter 13 and verse 22. All these things saying the same thing. Like you say, sometimes Esau, hey, they take a peek in how we do it, and they try to write it down. Because to hide some truth, they got to put a lie out there. To hide a lie, you got to put some truth out there. Acts chapter 13, verse 22.
The book of Acts, chapter 13, verse 22.
Mm-hmm.
And when he had removed him, he raised up upon unto them David.
So guess what? When he had removed Saul, he raised up unto him King David, right? Read.
To be their king,
To be their king. Read on.
to whom also he gave testimony.
So he also gave. He didn't just raise him up to be a king. He gave him a testimony, right? Read.
He gave testimony and said, I have found David, the son of Jesse, a man after mine own heart, which shall fulfill all my will.
So he already knew that King David was the type of person that's going to fulfill the will of the Most High God. He wasn't going to back off of it. Whatever the duties was, whatever the job was, King David was going to go get it, man. Right? So, but we also got to know that how King David rolled. Like you say, he was ready to do the will of God, but we also, when we read scriptures, we want to also correlate ourselves with the scriptures. That's why the things that were written aforetime was written for our learning, that we might have comfort of the scriptures, man, so we can have hope, right? This is how this thing rock, man. Me too. So let there be light, man. 1 Samuel chapter 16, right quick. If we can get into the story, man. 1 Samuel chapter 16, start at verse 10. This is King David, what you call it, this is being King David anointed from the Most High God to be king, man. So, Samuel wanted to go. The Most High God told Samuel that he's going to anoint King David. Man, he was going to anoint what's David's father's name? Jesse. He told Samuel that Jesse got a son over there. I'm going to anoint him to be king. So Samuel told the Most High, he said, man, if I go over there, Saul going to kill me. So the Most High told Samuel, he said, look, just say, man, I'm going to go over there. Just say that you're going to go do an offering over there with Jesse. And then when you do the offering with Jesse, I'm going to anoint the king that I want. So he let Jesse, all the children passed on through there, through in front of Samuel. He didn't anoint all of them. He asked him, did he have one more? And this is the point where we at right now. Verse 10.
The book of 1 Samuel, chapter 16, verse 10. Again, Jesse made 7 of his sons to pass before Samuel. And Samuel said unto Jesse, the Lord hath not chosen these.
So guess what? This is exactly what I was talking about. So if you go up in chapter 16 and you read down all of this, a couple of what I just got finished going into, right? Read.
And Samuel said unto Jesse, are here all thy children? And he said, there remaineth yet the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come hither.
So he told him to go fetch King David, King David, right? Read on.
And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy.
So, and now here you go. You know how some people, they say that ruddy word, and then here we go. It's ruddy. And they try to put that ruddy with Esau ruddy. Esau red, right? But that's two different things, right? This ruddy will be considered as a light-skinned person, or we call a red bone. Right? Verse 12.
And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, and with all of a beauty countenance.
And he said everybody say he was a nice looking man too, right? Read.
And goodly to look to. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. So
guess what? That's how even when you see he was getting ready to go battle what's his name? Goliath. When he was finna get ready to battle Goliath, right? What happened? Goliath said, dang, y'all seen this little old pretty boy over here to fight against me? He basically called King David a pretty boy, man. A little ruddy, little light-skinned brother, what he gonna do? But everybody know, if you think about how the world look, you think about how the world is. Well, them real high yellow people, them boys, I'm trying to tell you, you better watch them boys. Because everybody got a cousin, they family named Red, boy, and it's crazy. I don't know, but I know I got a cousin named Red. Them boys still watching. But that's how King David was too, man, right? Go ahead.
Even like I said, brothers and sisters, got to make sure y'all get a Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. A lot of these things are good for that. I'm going to read this right quick. This is the definition of ruddy out of the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary, page 510. Ruddy, a word used to refer to a red or fair complexion. This is the point, in contrast to the dark skin of the Hebrews. So even the Edomite scholars know that. They use it in reference to in contrast to the dark skin. So even like I was going into a lighter complexion brother. That's of an Israelite. So this is what these things are going into. This is a good book to have, brothers and sisters that are in the truth need this, especially you brothers that go out there and teach, to bring up these definitions of whatnot. And it's making reference to Samuel, what we just read. Go ahead.
We coming on there. But like you say, King David was a light-skinned brother. Like you say, he was good to look at, but he was a warrior though. And he didn't play no games. He didn't play no games with none of the nation or with our people either, right? Because he was gonna do the Most High God's will, man, no matter what. Verse 13.
Verse 13. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward.
From that day forward, read.
So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah.
So guess what, man? So when he anointed King David, the Most High God put a spirit on King David, man, to make sure he go out there and do the work. He's going, from this point right here, he was setting in order things that King David was supposed to do in his walk, man. And this is how, just thinking about, as I say, we want to keep going back and forth to correlate ourselves. Like the Most High God, when he woke us up to his truth, he put a spirit on us. And guess what? Sometimes people want to walk away from that spirit. That's why the Lord said it's better for you not to have known, right? Because he put that spirit on you, right? For you to know the truth, right? But he expecting us to walk in that thing, right? How long King David reigned?
40 years.
But break it down how he reigned. Scared to talk about it, man. Go to 2 Samuel chapter 5, man. So, little man, come on up here and teach, man. We'll let you. Put your little seat right up here. Second Samuel chapter 5, start at verse 1.
The book of 2 Samuel, chapter 5, verse 1. Then came all the tribes of Israel to David unto Hebron.
So this is after King David was being anointed to be the king, right? Read on.
And spake, saying, Behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh.
Read.
Also in the times past, when Saul was king over us.
So when this goes into, he said, we are thy bones and thy flesh. What is that going into, brother?
And all of one accord.
What's that? What's that going into?
Genesis.
Yes.
Okay.
What's that going into?
Genesis 2 and 22.
What's that going into? I'm asking.
To break it down.
They are going to be like joined up to one.
Go to Genesis chapter 2. Verse 23.
Book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 23. And Adam said, This is now my bones of my bone, and flesh of my flesh.
This is talking about the woman. Right? He said, now this is my bones of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Read.
She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man.
So the children of Israel told David, you're going to be my bone of my bone, my flesh of my flesh. What does that say? That the children of Israel is going to be married to King David. He's going to be over King David. You get that? He was supposed to be over the children of Israel. All right? Meaning how the woman is right here, the man is above the woman. And he's supposed to order the steps, right? Let's go back. 2 Samuel chapter 5. So when you read certain things, like say you read it, you want to make things that make sense. Why did he say those things? right? 2 Samuel chapter 5, what we at, verse 1.
The book of 2 Samuel, chapter 5, verse 1. Then came all the tribes of Israel to David unto Hebron, and spake, saying, Behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh.
So the children of Israel said, we are thy bone and thy flesh. That means, like you say, they was married to King David, man. Right, read.
Also, in time past, when Saul was king over us, thou was he that led us out and brought us in Israel. And the Lord said to thee, Thou shalt feed my people Israel.
So guess what, man? He already knew that what type of spirit King David was. He was gonna feed Israel, man. Right? Read.
And thou shalt be a captain over Israel.
Let's get some of that, man. This is the same thing how when you think about how Christ taught, how the word is spoke, this is how this thing, we're gonna correlate all these scriptures into one to make this to get a better understanding. Let's go to John chapter 10. And verse 11. So these are the things, this is why you see Christ talked the way he taught, King David talked the way he taught, but it's why the Most High God sent the word out, because the Lord have always caused us sheep. Guess what? And we always have shepherd, right? Read that John 10 and 11.
The book of John, chapter 10, verse 11. I am the good shepherd.
Read.
The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep.
And this is the same way, that's the same way King David was doing for the children of Israel. He was a good shepherd too. But Christ is the good shepherd, right? Or the same way Christ was, what Christ is doing? Christ is doing like his forefathers. He was doing like his lineage was supposed to do. He wasn't everything that was in order with the Most High. That's what Christ was doing. And that's what King David was doing. Even though we know King David had a fleshly side to him, but Christ killed his flesh off 40 days, 40 nights, right? But this is how a good shepherd. Now, Christ said, I'm the good shepherd, but we know at that point, particular time, David was the shepherd. So, what does a shepherd supposed to do? Protect the flock, watch over the flock, feed the flock. Let's go to Sirach chapter 18. I'm going to dig into it a little bit. Not too much, but a little bit. Sirach chapter 18 and verse 13.
Book of Sirach, chapter 18, verse 13. The mercy of man is toward his neighbor.
Read.
But the mercy of the Lord is upon all flesh.
Read on.
He reproveth and nurtureth and teacheth.
So this is how the good shepherd is supposed to do. They nurture and they teach it. Read.
And bringeth again as a shepherd his flock.
So this is how a shepherd's supposed to do. They gonna reprove, they gonna nurture, and they gonna teach, and they gonna bring it. They gonna bring again. That means if one of them fall, guess what? If one of them so happen fall, he gonna bring them back again. To put them back in the right spirit, or put her back in the right spirit, right? This is how a good shepherd's supposed to do. And this is how you feed the flock of the slaughter, man, right? All these things go one and the same. Even when you go to Isaiah chapter 40. Let's go there right quick. Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 10. This is going in one and the same. Right? Isaiah chapter 40, start at verse 10. For David to be over the flock, he's supposed to know how to teach. He's supposed to know how to reprove. Guess what? He's supposed to know how to nourish, and he's supposed to know how to bring back again. That means one of them fall, he should be able to pull them back. This is how a person that was a good shepherd is supposed to be, right? Read that out.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 10. Behold, the Lord God will come with strong hand, and his arm shall rule for him.
Read on.
Behold, his reward is with him, and his work before him.
And his work is always before him. Read.
He shall feed his flock like a shepherd. He shall gather the lambs with his arm,
Read on.
and carry them in his bosom, and shall gently lead those that are with young.
And this is how rather from the mighty to the ones that's got I mean, so the ones that got the small babies or the ones that's less of understanding, guess what? A good shepherd gonna always feed. This is how King David's mindset. Guess what? Well, when Christ got on the scene, his mindset was the same exact way. Moses' mind was the same way. The prophet's mind was the same way. Was to feed the sheep, right?
That's right.
Go to Psalm chapter 78.
Yeah, let me get Acts chapter 2 real quick to show you, even with King David, what I brought out in Isaiah chapter 4, that's a heavy precept. It's going even on a deeper level, going into him taking us into the wilderness. Literally guiding us, man. Remember this, the precepts have many folds. So just like we're getting guidance right now, gonna come a time where Christ is literally gonna guide us face to face, hand by hand. Let me get this to show King David was a prophet. Because I know a lot of times brothers and sisters think as King David just on the corner, just as being a warrior. But even like I was bringing out the precepts, hey, he was also a prophet too. Acts chapter 2, verse 30.
The book of Acts, chapter 2, verse 30.
Start at verse 29.
Verse 29. Men and brethren, let me freely speak unto you of the patriarch David, that he is both dead and buried.
Read on, Doc.
And his scepter is with us until this day.
Read on.
Therefore, being a prophet.
Read that again.
Therefore, being a prophet.
A prophet is what? Foreseeing and foretelling God's words. That's who wrote the book of Psalms, King David. And there's a lot of parables and a lot of prophecies in there, warning us what's mainly about Esau and the pending destruction that we'll be dealing with today. Read on up.
Therefore, being a prophet, and knowing that God has sworn with an oath to him, that of the fruit of his loin,
going into Christ, read on,
according to the flesh, he would raise up Christ to sit on his throne.
So he wasn't just a physical warrior, but he was more importantly a spiritual warrior, man. Go ahead, up.
What's going on this, man? Let's go to Psalm chapter 78 and verse 70. It goes into where I'm going into the point of how a good shepherd was supposed to do, how they're supposed to feed the flock, right? Watch this. This is how, and it's gonna show you what King David did in feeding the flock. Start at verse 70 out. 78 to 70.
The book of Psalms, chapter 78, verse 70. He chose David, also his servant, and took him from the sheep's fold, from following the ewes, great with young.
Read.
He brought him to feed Jacob, his people.
So guess what? The Most High God brought David to feed Jacob, his people, just like he sent Christ to feed the sheep too, right? Read on.
And Israel, his inheritance.
Read on.
So he fed them according to the integrity of his heart.
So he fed them to the knowledge of his heart, man. Read.
And guided them by the skillfulness of his hand.
And he guided them by the skillfulness of his hand, man. That means, guess what? Through all the attributes of what King David had, the Lord was putting the mighty spirit on King David to, guess what? Do a lot of works in Israel.
That's right.
And to bring peace to Israel, to bring understanding to Israel. And guess what? And in there, guess what? We're going to see over the storyline that we go through, we're going to see how King David was putting this thing in order the whole time, right? And then start making, like you say, you'll see how certain things in the Bible start making more and more sense as you go on, right? Let's go back. Let's go to 2 Samuel chapter 5 and verse 10. So, you know, a lot of times, brothers and sisters, you know, we look at how our walk is and how the love of the Most High God is, but we should always look at what's our next duty in this job, in this work, in this walk. We should be looking for, I know a lot of times, me personally, myself, I know a lot of times I sit back and I try to examine things, but I also try to see, first and foremost, what things I can do to bring to the table, right? And that's how the King David was a man after the Most High God's heart, because he was looking after one mission after the next mission to make sure that he get the job done, right? 2 Samuel chapter 5, start at verse 10.
The book of 2 Samuel, chapter 5, verse 10. And David went on and grew great, and the Lord God of hosts was with him.
So when David grew, and he was great, right? And everybody knows the Lord was with David. Anything that King David touched, guess what, man? If it came against King David or the Most High, he was going to destroy it right there in front of everybody, right? That's how King David was, right? Read on.
And Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to David, and cedar trees, and carpenters, and masons, and they built David an house.
So they built David a house, but you got to also keep in the mind of the king of Haran and the work that he did, because after King David died, he also helped. Matter of fact, let's go get it right quick. First Chronicle. He helped King Solomon do some stuff too, and it reads it plain in the scripture. First Chronicles chapter 5. Start at verse 1. Second. Amen. Second part. Chapter 4. Amen. Let me see. I'll be wondering why sometimes I write it. Let me see. No, First Kings. First Kings chapter 5. First Kings, Shalaki brothers. So First Kings chapter 5. Verse 1. Shalaki.
The book of First Kings, chapter 5, verse 1. And Hiram, king of Tyre, sent his servants unto Solomon.
So after King David died, right, the king of Hiram of Tyre, he still had more work to do, because, hey, King David had to put him in, when King David put him in his place, hey, he was like, hey man, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Right? But watch this though, read.
Unto Solomon, for he had heard that he had anointed him king in the room of his father.
Read.
For Hiram was ever a lover of David.
So Hiram was a lover of King David, man. Right? He loved King David because King David was about the business and he was doing the work of the Most High God, right? Jump down to verse 7.
Verse 7. And it came to pass, when Hiram heard the words of Solomon, that he rejoiced greatly, and said, Blessed be the Lord this day, which hath given unto David a wise son over this great people.
Read on.
And Hiram sent to Solomon, saying, I have considered the things which thou sentest to me for, and I will do all thy desire concerning timber of cedar and concerning timber of fir.
So Hiram was making sure that King David had all the wood and stuff that he needed, man, to build a temple. So the thing is, just why you say, when you keeping the commandments, guess what? The Lord make even your enemies to be at peace with you, man. That's why, like you say, after King David, man, did the job, he made sure he sent to his son, look, he was, just think about King David dead and gone, guess what? He still leaving behind what his son should be doing, right? Let's go back. Like you say, you want to keep the same mindset of King David setting the order, right? 2 Samuel chapter 5, start at verse 11 again. We're going to read down.
The book of 2 Samuel, chapter 5, verse 11. And Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to David, and cedar trees, and carpenters, and masons, and they built an house. And they built David an house.
So the king Hiram built David a house for himself, right? But he also, what we just read in 1 Kings chapter 5, he also sent wood to help King Solomon build the temple, man, right? Read on.
And David perceived that the Lord had established him king over Israel, and that he exalted his kingdom for his people Israel's sake.
For his kingdom Israel's sake. Read on.
And David took him more concubines and wives out of Jerusalem after he was come from Hebron. And there were yet sons and daughters born to David.
So we know how King David was being anointed to be king. So after when he became king, you know what a king do? He won't mow. Hey, he won't mow. But in that, guess what? The Most High God also gave an understanding to King Solomon in that thing too, because while he took more wives, Solomon was being born too. So everything that the Most High God was doing, it was doing for a reason. But it was a reason why even in that, why Solomon was asking for wisdom. It was because the things that he seen in the temple, and also because of the things that was around. Watch this. Let's go to 1 Kings, chapter 3. This is what's he say? This is Solomon asking for wisdom, man, right? 1 Kings chapter 3 and verse, we're gonna start at verse 9.
The book of 1 Kings, chapter 3, verse 9.
Mm-hmm.
Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad.
Because King Solomon wanted to know these things. He wanted to know the judge between good and bad, right? Read.
For who is able to judge this thy so great a people? And speech pleased the Lord. And their speech pleased the Lord.
And the speech pleased the Lord, read.
That Solomon had asked this thing.
So Solomon, and it pleased the Most High God because Solomon asking those things, man. And this is how we supposed to be sound speech in our mind. This is how we supposed to be with the Most High God, period. Right? We supposed to be looking what the Lord, not being carnal, right? We supposed to be asking for the Lord for the things that we need, right? Well, watch this, but read on though. We need to put some more on this.
And God said unto him, because thou hast asked this thing, and have not asked for thyself long life, neither has I asked for riches for thyself, nor has asked the life of thine enemies, but has asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment. Behold, I have done according to thy word. Lo, I have given thee a wise and understanding heart, so that there was none like thee before, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee.
So he gave King Solomon wisdom, man, above all, man, right? Just because King Solomon wasn't no he wasn't the type of person that was carnal. He stayed spiritual. And this is the trouble that us in Israel get into, because a lot of times we think carnally. If a brother and sister think spiritual, guess what? When we do things for this truth, or when we do things for the Most High, if you think it's spiritual, man, it should never be a problem. Always think spiritual. Always stay in the spirit, right? Go to Sirach chapter 18 right quick. We're going back. Sirach chapter 18 verse 23. Get there, let's read it.
The book of Sirach, chapter 18, verse 23. Before thy prayers, prepare thyself.
He said, before thy prayers, prepare thyself, right? Read.
And be not as one that tempteth the Lord.
Because we don't never want to be the one that tempt God, man. Because you praying for vain things. Praying for stuff that you know you don't really need, man. And we don't never want to be the one that tempt God, right? That's why the Lord told us to prepare ourselves, man. When we praying to the Lord, we should always prepare ourselves. On your day-to-day basis, you should be gathering things to things that you can pray for, or things that you should be doing this on a day-to-day basis, man. When you get ready to say your prayers to the Most High, you should be gathering thoughts, gathering information to know what you need to do. Why did King Solomon know how to know the things to pray for, right? Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 17. This is how you knew. Right? Deuteronomy chapter 17 and verse 15. Start at verse 15.
Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 17, verse 15. Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord thy God shall choose. One from among thy brethren.
One from among thy brethren, read.
Shalt thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother.
So guess what? The Lord told us not to set no stranger over us that's not our brother. So guess what? They kills the notion of brothers saying they gonna go vote, this and that. No, we don't vote. Right? Verse 16.
But he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt.
Now, when he said, he said, should not multiply horses to thyself, or cause our people to return to Egypt. Cause their mindset to return to Egypt, right? Read.
To the end that he shall multiply horses.
Uh-huh.
For as much as the Lord has said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way.
So the Lord said we shouldn't, our mind should no more go back to Egypt. Right? Bro, read on.
Neither shall he multiply wives to himself.
Read that again.
Neither shall he multiply wives to himself.
So Solomon looking at King David doing what? Have all these different wives. He's seeing the same thing in the kingdom. But guess what? Solomon did the same thing. But it ain't like that he didn't know. But the reason why, at that time when he prayed that prayer to the Most High God and he asked for that wisdom, this is what he was looking at. He was looking back at what our forefathers was doing and what they had already written down, right? But read on.
That his heart turn not away.
Mm-hmm.
Neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold.
Read.
And it shall be, when he sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom, that he shall write him a copy of this law in a book of out of that which is before the priests, the Levites.
So guess what, man? They were supposed to, King David, Solomon, and all the kings that we had, guess what they were supposed to do? Exactly what was already written. But guess what? They did the way they wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm. And verse 17 is saying not that brothers couldn't have multiple wives. Right. It's just that you couldn't have them and be out of order. Right. Mm-hmm. You having multiple wives, like I say, neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away. Because a lot of times when brothers is dealing in that particular lifestyle, it can turn your heart away from the scriptures. You're so concentrating on them and you forget about doing the work of the Lord. Right. So it's not that brothers cannot. Let me get a precept real quick. Even bag it up. Yeah, exactly. Let's go to the book of Sirach, chapter 9 and verse 2. Not that brothers can't, and like we tell brothers, we know it's in the scriptures, but we tell brothers, just because it's in the scriptures doesn't mean that it's expedient. Meaning what it's the right time to do. Sisters got a spirit of hatred towards one another. Sisters got a spirit of jealousy towards one another. And a lot of times when brothers is not grounded in the truth, those things can pull brothers and sisters out of the truth. But just because you get those things don't make you better off. When you get there, read this out.
The book of Sirach, chapter 9, verse 2. Give not thy soul unto a woman to set her foot upon thy substance.
Read that again out.
Give not thy soul unto a woman.
Because a lot of times when you're dealing in those particular type things, you can easily give your soul to a woman. And they can turn you away from this truth if you're not grounded. Even like what Ak is going into and what Solomon is going into. Read on out.
To set her foot upon thy substance.
Go ahead, Ak.
And big con on it. And just like what I'm going into, and it was even multiplying wife of our own nation too. Yeah, right. Because a lot of time when we multiply wife of our own nation, we so occupied in our wives, we can't go do the work of the Most High God. Because now we can't defraud this woman, we can't defraud this woman, we can't defraud, and there's a lot of things that we brought onto a brother. Now he can't do the work. That's the same thing that Paul was saying in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 29. Right? Let's read it right quick. Then we go back. So it's not just of the other nations, of our nation too, because we'll be taken away from the work of the Most High God. Because you can't, whatever you do for this woman, you got to do for the next woman. That's why it was pivotal that a man stayed in order in his household according to how the Most High God told him to do. Because if you got a wife, you can't defraud this woman. You can't defraud this woman. You got to do this wife the same way this wife do. Right? 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 29.
The book of 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 29. But this I say, brethren, the time is short. Mm-hmm. It remaineth that both they that have wives be as though they had none.
So this is the time that we in now. We got to be sitting up there abounding in the work, supposed to be doing the work. But when brothers multiplying wives to themselves, now you got to work on multiple households. Right. It's taking away too much of the time that we need to be spent doing the work, right? Let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 17. Read verse 19.
Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 17, verse 19. And it shall be with him, and he shall read therein.
So the king that was been set up, he's supposed to be writing the law, statutes, and commands. And their law, statutes, and commands should be with him, right? Read.
And it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life.
So this is how King David was feeding the sheep too. He was supposed to be keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. He got the Levites right here doing administration. Guess what? And this is how we feed. This is how you feed the flock, right? Read.
That he may learn to fear the Lord his God,
Uh-huh.
to keep all the words of this law
Mm-hmm.
and these statutes, to do them.
To do them. So this is how the administration was supposed to go from the beginning, right? This is how it always supposed to go. This is how it was supposed to be. All right.
Read 20.
Verse 20. That his heart be not lifted up above his brethren.
Because going back to that, when a lot of people, I'm telling you, brothers hear that the Hebrew, the first thing they hear, oh, multiple wives. That's all they hear. That's all they see. Right? Oh, yeah, that's going there, yeah. But it's not about that, man. It's his heart be not lifted up. That's why he told them, don't take these wives to think that. That's why King Solomon asked for wisdom. The Lord was pleased with it. He said, you could ask for anything. You could ask for money. You could ask for anything. But because he asked for wisdom, what did he give him? He gave him everything else. Because if you ask for wisdom, then you're understanding what you can do with everything. Now the money not going to take you and hinder you. Now the wives that you have not go overtake you and have you into so much that you can't work on your work that you got to be done, like I said. So this is the thing. When we get into this truth as far as like being rulers and leaders over this country, we can't be over righteous. We can't be just thinking that we above. You know what I'm saying? We still got to be humble, brothers and sisters. And we take things out of, sometimes we take things in here, oh yeah, we got multiple wives. It's going down. Like I said, man, it's not the time for that right now, man. But we make sure that we stay in order. That's what Solomon did. Take a lot of these things out of Scripture and see what they did and put it into your everyday life. Solomon asked for wisdom first, man. So that when we do get the things that we want or we need or we ask for, that we can handle the things that we want.
So we can be able to maintain those
That's
things,
right.
man.
That's
That's the whole point. That's why we do those things, so we can be able to maintain these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to 1 Kings, man, chapter 3. We'll start at verse 13. Get there, let's read it.
The book of 1 Kings, chapter 13, verse 3. And he gave a sign the same day, saying, this is the sign which the Lord has spoken. Behold, the altar shall be rent, and the ashes that are...
Yeah.
3 and 13.
3 and 13.
Yeah.
The book of 1 Kings, chapter 3, verse 13. And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked, both riches and honor.
So the Lord said, since you didn't ask for it, I'm gonna give you this too. I'm gonna give you riches and honor, man. Read.
So that there shall not be any among the kings like unto thee all thy days.
Read.
And if thou wilt walk in my ways, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father David did walk, then I will lengthen thy days.
So he blessed King Solomon, man, because of the wisdom that he asked for the Most High God. Like you say, it wasn't the wisdom to get the things, it was the wisdom to get the things. It was wisdom to be able to discern between good and evil, to be able to understand on how to judge the people, man. Because to deal with Israel as a whole, to deal with Israel as a nation, man, we know how hard it is to deal with each other on a day-to-day basis, man. And to be able to judge the whole 12 tribes, man, that's a big job, man. Go ahead.
Now, even like what I said, even just on a smaller level, on the congregation level, man. Hey, we seen the things that Moses dealt with. Guess what? We dealing with those things on a minute level. We say we can't get things ordered in a small congregation. You really think you're ready to rule the world? You know, this is the mindset, even with brothers, even with sisters as well, getting in that mindset, man. Brothers and sisters just not there yet, man. Hey, but better be trying to get there before Christ come back. I'll tell you that, man. For real. Go ahead, Al.
Big con on that, man. Let's go back to 2 Samuel chapter 5, man. This time I'm going to jump down to verse 17, though. Let's read it.
The book of 2 Samuel, chapter 5, verse 17.
Mm-hmm.
But when the Philistines heard that they had anointed David king over Israel. All the Philistines came up to seek David, and David heard of it and went down to the hold.
So guess what, man? They went to go see after David, and King David said they were looking for me. So he went out there to go see what's up, what's to it, right? Read.
The Philistines also came and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. And David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go up to the Philistines?
So guess what, man? In his carnal mindset, he just ran on out there. But in the spiritual mindset, guess what he did first? He went to talk to the Most High first. Said, should I do this, Lord? Because he could have easily, when he heard that, he could have easily ran on out there and just went to war with him. But we want to make sure that the Lord was on his side, though, right? And that's how we correlate this today. That's how we should be thinking, too. Make sure the Lord is on our side when we make decisions, right?
That's right.
We don't.
Shall I go up to the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into mine hand? And the Lord said unto David, go up, for I will, doubtless, deliver the Philistines into thine hand.
He said, man, he basically going how New York Negroes be talking. No doubt, I'm going to deliver them in your hand. No doubt, no doubt. All right? Read on.
And David came to Baal Perazim, and David smote them there.
And David smote them there, read.
And said, the Lord had broken forth upon mine enemies before me, as the breach of waters.
Read.
Therefore he called the name of that place Baal Perazim. And there they left their images, and David and his men burnt them.
So guess what? After David kicked their butt, he burned their idols, right? And he not just kicked their butt, he put a lot of them to death. So, but read on.
And the Philistines came up yet again and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. And David inquired of the Lord. He said, thou shalt not go up, but fetch a compass behind them, and come upon them over against the mulberry trees.
So the Most High God, instead of the Most High God telling King David, instead when he went and treated to the Most High God again, he didn't let King David go up to the fight again. He told him, no, this time I want you to go over there. This is obedience for the Most High, man. You see how he staying in order with the Most High? If you going to get things in order in your life, just how King David was doing, because King David, his administration was to go to war. So if you're going to stay in order with your life with the Most High, you got to be in order and asking the Most High, hey, should I, instead of you going forth on your own self and on your own accord to do certain things, right? That's how brothers and sisters get in trouble in this truth, man. Right? But read on.
Verse 24. And let it be, when thou hearest the sound of a gong going in the tops of the mulberry trees, that then thou shalt bestir thyself, for then shall the Lord go out before thee to smite the host of the Philistines.
Read.
And David did so, as the Lord had commanded him, and smote the Philistines from Gibeah until thou come to Gaza.
So guess what, man? And when the Philistines came up to him again, he did exactly how the Most High God told him to do. Then guess what happened? They got their butt kicked again. Looking at us, I always gonna correlate to the every day, our day to day. Looking at us, how we defeat our stuff on our day to day walk. We're going out our own corner way. Ask the Lord, can I go do this?
That's right. Let me get a precept real quick. Back up even with I said, let's go to the book of Proverbs chapter 24 and verse 5. Because even the scriptures tells us to do nothing without counsel. And a lot of times when things go wrong, like we say, it's a way that seemeth right, but the end thereof is destruction. So brothers and sisters want to make sure that they're getting a good understanding of these things, man. Especially certain major moves, man. You get there, read this out.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 24, verse 5. A wise man is strong, yea, a man of knowledge increases strength.
So that's how we increase strength, by being a wise man. A wise man keep the commandments, but this is the point. Read on.
For by wise counsel thou shalt make thy war.
Read that again, Doc.
For by wise counsel thou shalt make thy war.
That's what wise counsel gives you the ability to overcome certain wars that brothers and sisters deal with. A lot of times we thinking about the carnal war. No, it's more important the spiritual war. Like even what Ak is going into, you're dealing with certain things, certain spirits that are upon you, and you have to come to counsel with those things, man. A lot of times it's a breakdown when brothers and sisters are not praying, fasting, and damn sure not applying. So we see it's always a breakdown of one of those three things when brothers and sisters cannot shake certain spirits that are on them. Read that again, huh?
For by wise counsel thou shalt make thy war, and in multitude of counselors there is safety.
And in multitude of counselors there is safety. The multitude of counselors going into Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Jonah. These are the multitude of counselors that we should inquire of. Go ahead, huh?
Scan Proverbs, go to 16 and 9. We'll start at 8. Because this is what Solomon was doing. This is what David was doing. It was asking the Lord to order this step. Basically. We know this every day. The saying is order my steps. But if you really, truly want the Lord to order your steps, you got to make sure that you, every battle ain't yours, you know. You know this. The only battle that we got to fight is that everyday man, that old man, that old woman. Every other battle you got to give to the Lord. That's what David did. Like I said, that was a great point. David was a mighty warrior. He was a trained killer. But even he still didn't go on his own just because he was a trained killer. He still had to have favor for the Most High God. And as powerful as David was, what did the Lord tell him? He said, "Nah, not this time. Don't fight this time." Right? So we got to make sure we let ourselves be ordered.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 8.
Mm-hmm.
Better is a little with righteousness.
Better is a little with righteousness mean what? You are obeying, you are in obedience. Read on.
Then great revenues without right.
Then, like you said, David could have been what? I'm going to go knock these Negroes off, right? I'm King David. I'm tough. But he said better is little righteousness than great revenues without, man. You would rather do the things that you are commanded to do, right? Read on.
A man's heart deviseth his way.
What does a man's heart do?
A man's heart deviseth his way.
Your heart and how you feel about certain topics, I'm finna go tell this Negro off. Oh, this sister got me effed up. Tired of this, you know what I'm saying? Let's go devise your way for what?
But the Lord directed his steps.
But the Lord is going to direct your steps, man. That's what David let him do. That's what Solomon let him do. That's what our forefathers, what we got to take from the good of our forefathers. Letting the Lord devise our steps and order our steps, basically. Let's see that.
Good comment on that, man. Let's go to 1 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 1. Now this is right here goes into King David. After he going into these battles, you gotta understand King David was assembling the children of Israel too. In war and in order, right? 1 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 1.
The book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 28, verse 1.
I know a lot of times it's kind of hard, even when brothers and sisters watching a class like going into history. But a lot of this history goes into when you start going into feast days, when you start going into your prayers, when you start going into get a better understanding of Scripture. That's why, brothers, these classes of history must come out. You know, like I say, these kind of be the most. These kind of be like the what you call it, most boringest classes, but these be the most heaviest classes concerning our history. We learn about George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and all of them. No, we got to learn about our forefathers too, right?
I'm gonna tell you that. Let you know, brothers and sisters, all classes should be good, man. If all classes ain't good, you thinking the class is boring, your behind is out the spirit.
Right? Definitely out of the spirit. That's true.
Hey, it is what it is. You have to check that thing, man. Go ahead,
Big going on there, man. Read that though.
Book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 28, verse 1. And David assembled all the princes of Israel, the princes of the tribes, the captains of the companies that ministered to the king by course, and the captains over the thousands, and captains over the hundreds, and the stewards over all the substance and possession of the king.
So he was ordering. He was putting things in order, man. This is how King David was. This is how he was taught because the Most High God had the spirit on King David, right? Read on.
And of his sons, with the officers, and with the mighty men, and with all the valiant men unto Jerusalem.
Read.
Then David the king stood up upon his feet and said, Hear me, my brethren, and my people. As for me, I had in mine heart to build an house of rest for the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and for the footstool of our God, and had made ready for the building.
And he made ready for the building. So this is how King David said, look, man, I was ready. I had everything ready. to go, right? But read on.
But God said unto me,
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt not build an house for my name,
Mm-hmm.
because thou hast been a man of war and hast shed blood.
So this is why King David couldn't go up to King David couldn't go up here. He couldn't go up there to build a temple because he had too much blood on his hand. But he knew, guess what? Even though the Lord didn't allow him to do that, guess what? He also knew that, guess what? He had a job to do before the temple before the temples was being built. So he had to go through those things, right? Read on now.
Verse 4.
Mm-hmm.
Howbeit, the Lord God of Israel chose me before all the house of my father to be king over Israel.
Read.
Forever.
For what?
Forever.
This is going into what? His
lineage.
What?
Lineage.
It's going into his lineage. Right? Read.
For he hath chosen Judah to be the ruler, and out of the house of Judah, the house of my father, and among the sons of my father, he like me to make me king over all Israel.
So he made him king over all Israel. Guess what? We knew what we read earlier. Guess what? King, I don't know if we finished it. Did we go back? Did we finish that? 2 Samuel chapter 5. I can't remember that coming out.
We finished that whole thing.
Did we read verse 4?
Yeah, 5. We finished 25.
No, we started verse 3. Go back to 2 Samuel. Go back to 2 Samuel chapter 3, chapter 5. So I started verse 4.
The book of 2 Samuel, chapter 5. You said verse 4?
Yeah, verse 4.
Verse 4. David was 13 years old when he began to reign.
Read that again, now.
David was 13 years old.
Read that again.
I don't say that you got different Bible.
Oh, 30.
Look, say that one got that new king, new.
David was 30 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 40 years.
And he reigned 40 years. He was 30 years old. He reigned 40 years. So he reigned. So how old was King David when he died?
70.
He was at 70 years old, man. 70, right? 40 years. He was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. But this is to break down how he reigned. Read verse 5.
In Hebron, he reigned over Judah 7 years.
He reigned over Judah alone 7 years. Judah, Benjamin, and Levite for 7 years, right? Read.
7 years and 6 months. And in Jerusalem, he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Judah.
So he reigned 33 years over Israel and Judah all together as a whole. So he reigned over Judah, so like Judah and Benjamin, right? And then he reigned 33 years over all of Israel all together, right? So this right here, like, that's why you hear when we read in 1 Chronicles chapter 28 and verse 4, it said he was supposed to reign over he's supposed to be a king over all Israel, right? And that's how he began his reign. Because you got to understand, the northern tribe was still with what? They were still looking at Saul to be their king, right? You know something?
Go ahead.
He was looking at Saul to be their king, man. But as he was going on, guess what? As he was going on, as King David was going on, he wasn't just setting up the men of valor. He was setting up even the Levites too. He was setting them up too the same way, right? Watch this. Go to 1 Chronicles chapter 26, right? First Chronicles chapter 26. Yeah, he wasn't just setting up there. He was also setting up the Levites too, because the Levites had an administration and job to do too. Not just along with the children of Israel, but the Levites had jobs to do too, right? 26 and verse 1.
The book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 26, verse 1, concerning the divisions of the porters.
And now we're gonna go into the porter. Now this right here concerning the division of a porter. Now what is a porter? Let's go to 1 Chronicles chapter 9. As it explains what a porter is. 1 Chronicles chapter 9. Then we're gonna go back in verse 22. This explains what, like you say, what a porter is. You get that out, let's read it.
The book of First Chronicles, chapter 9, verse 22. All these which were chosen to be porters in the gates were 212.
Was 212, read.
These were reckoned by their genealogy in their villages, whom David and Solomon the seer did ordain in their set office.
What did they call David? They called David a seer, right? Well, let's get right there, precept down what I wrote in Acts chapter 2 and 29 and 30. You can write that down right beside it. They called David, clearly calling him a seer, right?
Read that last part again now.
Yeah,
I say.
Whom David and Samuel the seer did ordain in their set office.
Read.
So they and their children had the oversight of the gates of the house of the Lord, namely the house of the tabernacle, by wards. In 4 quarters were the porters.
In 4 quarters were the porters, read.
Toward the east, west, north, and south.
Read.
And their brethren, which were in their villages, were come after 7 days from time to time with them.
Read on out.
For these Levites, the 4 chief porters.
The Levites was the 4 chief porters, man. Those the people that were set over the porters to do the administration, right? But watch this though.
Were in their set office and were over the chambers and treasuries of the house of God.
And this is going into the chief porters, right? But read on.
And they lodged round about the house of God, because the charge was upon them, and the opening thereof every morning pertained to them.
So guess what? The Levites went to the gates and they opened the gates every morning, right? In and out, right? And also, it's got more to it, but read.
And certain of them had the charge of ministering vessels.
And certain Levites had a charge of ministering vessels, read.
That they should bring them in and out by tale.
By count, read.
Some of them also were appointed to oversee the vessels.
And someone was to oversee the vessel, read.
And all the instruments of the sanctuary. And the fine flour.
Read.
And the wine. And the oil.
Read.
And the frankincense. And the spices. And some of the sons of the priests made the ointment of the spices.
And this was the administration of the porters, man. They did a lot of blessing. They did a lot of deeds, man, concerning things that was going in the temple and out of the temple. They was doing count over the vessels. They made sure things was in order. And so King David was setting up all these things to make sure that things in the temple, guess what, to be ran right? Even when you think about, let's go to Mark right quick, chapter 13. Mark chapter 13, verse 33. So when you read, like you say, when you see certain things, like even when you go to the New Testament, you see certain things, and you'll see what this is going into, right? Read that. 13, 33.
The book of Mark, chapter 13, verse 33. Take ye heed, watch and pray.
Watch and pray, read.
For ye know not when the time is.
So we don't know when the time Christ is coming back, so we got to watch and pray, right? Read.
For the Son of Man is a man taking a far journey, who left his house and gave authority to his servants.
And he said he left the house, but he gave authority to his servants, which goes into us, right? Read.
And to every man his work. And commanded the porter to watch.
And he commanded the porters to watch, right? So when you see things like that, when you see like the word porter, this goes into this goes into us as a whole to doing the watch, man. Right? How the job that the porters had then in the temple is the job this is the job that we got right now, to be watched, to make sure things go in and out the house of God. Make sure that things go in the house, in and out what the Lord had set up, right? This is the thing. Just keep in mind of these same jobs and these administrations, right? Because this goes into what the Lord has for us, right? And this is why we got to make sure that we stay grounded, right? Let's go back. First Chronicles chapter 26, man. All right. First Chronicles chapter 26. Jump down to verse 12, right?
The book of First Chronicles, chapter 26, verse 12. Among these were the division of the porters,
Read.
even among the chief men, having wars one against another, to minister in the house of the Lord.
Read.
And they cast lots, as well as the small as the great, according to the house of their fathers, for every gate.
So just they made sure that they was in council every day. Guess what? So they could be able to, the things going, they can be able to count the other things going in and out of the temple, right? What's going in and out of the house of God, right? Jump down to verse 19.
Verse 19.
Now, what reason why I'm skipping over, because it shows all the names of in the family, the lineage of the porter. So it's going through it, right? Jump down to verse 19.
Verse 19. These are the division of the porters among the sons of Kor, and among the sons of Merari. And of the Levites, Anhiah was the over the treasures of the house of God.
So guess what? This type of porter, this type of Levite was over the treasures of God, right? Read.
And over the treasures of the delicate things.
And he was over the. Read that again.
And over the treasures of the dedicated things.
Dedicated
things.
So he was over treasure. I know, man. Yeah. So he was over the treasures, and he was over the things that's supposed to be dedicated, right, in the temple, right. Jump down to verse 26.
Verse 26, which Shalamith and his brethren were over all the treasures of the dedicated things,
Read.
which David the king and the chief fathers, the captains over thousands and hundreds, and the captains of the host had dedicated. Out of the spoils won in battles did they dedicate to maintain the house of the Lord.
So guess what? When they was going by winning these wars, and he was taking all of this stuff, he had to go put it somewhere. Somebody had to be held. Somebody had to hold count of these things, man. So what the porters was doing, they was making sure that when after David come back with a war, and he come back with all this stuff, and he dumped it out on it. Guess what he was doing? He was making sure they was ordering this stuff, and he was putting this stuff in order. Yeah, always. He's not just going to take spoils of the city and just dominate all these lands, and he ain't getting nothing out of it. No, he taking stuff with him. And as he going to war, guess what? He taking these things back, and the porters is taking care of the business, right? Let me see. Let's go. Shalach. They come on there. All praise to the Most High, man. Let's go to. Let's go back to First Chronicles. Go back to First Chronicles, chapter. Let me see. 28. Nah, I want to go. I'm gonna show y'all something in this too. First Chronicles chapter 23, right quick. Then we go back to 20. Don't worry about it. Camera's too hot, boy.
For you too.
I'll praise you. First Chronicles chapter 23 and verse 25, right quick.
The book of First Chronicles, chapter 23, verse 25. For David said, the Lord God of Israel have given rest unto his people, that they may dwell in Jerusalem forever.
So when King David was going through all these wars, right, the Lord had started giving David rest, giving the children of Israel rest, right? But watch this though, read.
And also unto the Levites, they shall no more carry the tabernacle, nor any vessels of it, for the service thereof.
So, if anybody know about the tabernacle congregation, the Levites was to do what? They was moving the tabernacle congregation from place to place when they was going to take control of them lands. That's what they were administration. Matter of fact, we'll go get it right quick. I'm going to go to Exodus right quick. Chapter 33. Exodus chapter 33 and verse 7. This goes to give us understanding of the tabernacle congregation.
Book of Exodus, chapter 33, verse 7. And Moses took the tabernacle and pitched it without the camp, afar off from the camp, and called it the tabernacle of the congregation.
So this is what the Levites was taking around, the tabernacle of congregation, right? But read on.
And it came to pass that every one which sought the Lord went out unto the tabernacle of the congregation, which was without the camp.
So when people wanted to get answers from the Lord, people will go leave the camp and go over to the tabernacle of congregation to go try to get some answers from him, right? From the Lord, right? Read.
And it came to pass, when Moses went out unto the tabernacle, that all the people rose up and stood every man at his tent door, and looked after Moses until he was gone into the tabernacle.
So when Moses went into the tabernacle, every man standing there watching them, because this is why they watching them, man. Read on.
Verse 9. And it came to pass, as Moses entered into the tabernacle, the cloudy pillar descended and stood at the door of the tabernacle. And the Lord talked with Moses.
And who talked with Moses?
And the Lord talked with Moses.
So guess what, man? This is when that cloud came down and put that wall up there they couldn't see. The Lord came down. Yahweh came down and talked to Moses, right? So it ain't that he didn't know it, because guess what? That's why Moses was writing about somebody. Guess what? He talking to him, right? Watch this. Read on.
And all the people saw the cloudy pillar.
See, they seen the cloudy pillar. The people seen the cloudy pillar, though. But watch this, though.
Stand at the tabernacle door. And all the people rose up and worshiped every man in his tent door.
And every man worshiped because they seen that cloud came down and shut Moses in, right? Or read on verse 11.
And the Lord spake unto Moses face to face.
And the Lord says what?
And the Lord spake unto Moses face to face.
And the Lord spake to Moses face to face, man. So Moses knew Yahweh shot too, right? Read.
As a man speaketh unto his friend.
As a man speaking unto his friend, read.
And he turned again into the camp. But his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, departed not out of the tabernacle.
So guess what, man? That's the reason why you see how it's setting up for the next person that was supposed to be giving order. It was setting up for the next person to get in order. When you seen Joshua, he was right there with him. He wanted, hey, I need this. Guess what? And that shows an administration between certain brothers and sisters. Some brothers and sisters gonna step up to the plate. Some brothers and sisters just not, whether the job is at hand or not. Some brothers and sisters just not gonna do it. But some brothers and sisters ready to step up to the plate and they gonna do it. This is something how we got to have our mind wrapped around, because guess what? We see these things in the scriptures and we got to walk like we got to act like we see them, right? Let's go back to 1 Chronicles, man, chapter 23, man. We ain't finished that. 1 Chronicles chapter 23. And what we leave off there, verse 25.
The book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 23, verse 25. For David said, the Lord God of Israel have given rest unto his people, that they may dwell in Jerusalem forever. And also unto the Levites, they shall no more carry the tabernacle, nor any vessels of it, from the service thereof. For by the last words of David, the Levites were numbered from 20-year-old and above.
Read.
Because their office was to wait on the sons of Aaron.
Read on.
For the service of the house of the Lord, in the courts.
In the courts, read.
And in the chambers.
And in the chambers, read.
And in the purifying of all holy things.
And the purifying of all holy things, read.
And the work of the service of the house of God. Both for the showbread.
Both for the showbread, read.
And for the fine flour for meat offering.
And for the fine flour of meat offering, read.
And for unleavened cakes. And for that which is baked in the pan. And for that which is fried. And for all manner of measures inside.
Because they look here, because they had to be precise on everything. The Lord said he loves a what? A just balance and a just what?
Wait.
Just wait. Because anybody just couldn't come in there and you might be off on the bread or something, man. The Lord said, no, it's got to be, no, everything is in order with the Most High. Right? Read.
Verse 30. and to stand every morning to thank and praise the Lord, and likewise at even, and to offer all burnt sacrifices unto the Lord in the Sabbaths,
in the Sabbath,
in the new moon,
and in the moon,
and on the set feast,
and on said feast, read,
by number, according to the order commanded unto them continually before the Lord, and that they should keep the charge of the tabernacle.
And they should keep the same charge that they had at the tabernacle. That's a charge that they supposed to be having at the temple. This is how King David is setting these things up for the things to come, right? Watch this, read.
And they should keep the charge of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the charge of the holy place, and the charge of the sons of Aaron, their brethren, in the service of the house of the Lord.
So guess what, man? When the Levites go into their administration, guess what? The tabernacle, the same thing they were doing at the tabernacle, when they go into the temple, that's going to be their job in the temple, man. Right? They got to make sure that things go into proper order, right? Watch this. It's going to go back to 1 Chronicles chapter 28 because it gives us a better understanding. Once we get ready to start reading down in 1 Chronicles chapter 28, it's going to give us a better understanding. All the stuff that we went into. Because we know that King David is getting, you know what I'm saying, there's all this thing going, and King David's going to war, and he's putting in position how things are supposed to be in temple. King David's getting older and older as the time go by. Right? And so now he's setting up the charge after him, right? 28 in verse, started at verse 9.
The book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 28, verse 9. And thou, Solomon, my son, know thou the God of thy father, and serve him with a perfect heart,
Read.
and with a willing mind.
And this is how the Lord is expecting us to be. King Solomon cannot build a temple if he's not working with the Lord with a perfect heart and a willing mind. This is how we should be thinking in Israel. We got to be open with a willing heart and with a willing mind to do the work of the Most High God, right? Read.
For the Lord searcheth all hearts.
And because the Lord gonna search your heart. If you got some wickedness in your heart, the Lord know what you do. You can fake the funk in front of us, but the Lord know what you're doing. You can fake it all you want to, but the Lord know exactly what you got going, man. Read.
For the Lord searcheth all hearts, and understandeth all the imaginations of the thoughts. If thou seek him,
if we seek the Lord, read,
he'll be found of thee.
And he'll be found of thee, read.
But if thou forsake him, he will cast thee off forever.
But God, what type of God say, guess what? If you do it according to my will, you can find me all the time. But if you don't do what I tell you to do, you can't find me. But so a lot of times we be looking for the Lord to try to step in to help us out, but guess what? We ain't doing a damn thing he tell us to do. Right?
And when it says cast thee off forever, that's going into what? 2/3 club. Some Israelites that's in the truth too, man. Like, hey, he's not playing. That's why you get certain family members, you got certain brothers and sisters, they just can't grasp the truth. You breaking it down as plain as day. I don't get why we shouldn't eat that. You know, I don't get why we should, guess what, just dress this way, dress that way. That's because the Most High God done cast them off. Brothers and sisters, pray that spirit don't happen to brothers and sisters. Because like we said, he's giving an example all the time for brothers and sisters that's cast off. Knowing the truth, now you cast off, boy, it's better that you not knowing it, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead, up.
Become. Watch this. Read on, though.
Verse 11. Verse 10.
Verse 10.
Take heed now, for the Lord hath chosen thee to build an house for the sanctuary. Be strong and do it.
So he telling Solomon, be strong and do this. This ain't Nike. He said, be strong and do it. But watch how symbolic these things come together. Watch it, verse 11.
Then David gave to Solomon his son the pattern of the porch.
So when we read about Solomon's porch, this is King David ordering the temple after he's dead and gone. He gave him the pattern on how to build a porch to the temple, right? Read.
And of the houses thereof, and of the treasury.
In the houses, that means going around in the courts, around the temple, man. Read.
And of the treasuries thereof.
And of the treasuries that was built around the temple. Read.
And of the upper chambers thereof.
In the upper chamber, read.
And of the inner parlors thereof. And of the place of the mercy seat.
And guess what? The place where people come to get judged at. Guess what? King David was setting in order all these things to be done after he was dead and gone. That's why the Lord said that his kingdom was going to be in his house forever, right? Let's go to Acts chapter 3 right quick. We're going back, though. Acts chapter 3 and verse 11. We're going to go into all the things, how King David was ordering things after he was dead and gone. And Solomon was fulfilling those things, man. Acts chapter 3 and verse 11.
Book of Acts, chapter 3, verse 11.
Hey, so he go on verse 11. Go ahead.
Verse 11. And as the lame man, which was healed, held Peter and John, all the people ran together unto them in the porch that is called Solomon's, greatly wondering.
So guess what? When they was on Solomon's porch, they was doing miracles. They was doing all kind of little stuff, right? Jump over to Acts chapter 5, verse 12. Watch this. Acts chapter 5, verse 12. It's going and basically going into the same thing.
Book of Acts, chapter 5, verse 12. And by the hands of the apostles were many signs and wonders wrought among the people. And they were all with one accord in Solomon's porch.
And they was on Solomon's porch doing what? Doing miracles, signs, and wonders. Guess what, man? This is how the Lord be set up to make. Hey, brothers can say these miracles ain't happen, but when we see certain things in the scriptures, hey, man, these things, they be saying what they say, man. All right? Let's go back right quick. So,
Spirit of the courts of the house of the Lord, and of all the chambers round about, of the treasuries of the house of God, and of the treasuries of the dedicated things.
See, man, did y'all catch that? So all the dedicated things was to go through what? Solomon's porch. So when we read John chapter 10 and verse 23, then watch how it makes most sense when you read John 10 and 23. Read that out.
Book of John, St. John, chapter 10, verse 23.
Verse 22.
Verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem, the feast of dedication.
Did y'all catch it? Read.
And it was winter. And Yahushua walked into the temple in Solomon's porch.
Read verse 22 again out.
And it was at Jerusalem, the feast of dedication.
It was at Jerusalem, the feast of dedication. Read.
And it was winter.
And it was winter. Read.
And Yahushua walked in the temple in Solomon's porch.
So where they was dedicating things at, guess what? That's why it was. You see how King David's ordering stuff, even for Christ to even come onto the scene during the feast. But the people, they try to say the feast of dedication ain't canon, but God dang it, man. I mean, that's too far-fetched not to say that you're not to do the feast of dedication, man. Let's go back to First Chronicle. That's one. Let's go back to First Chronicle chapter 28 and verse 12. So this right here gives us a better understanding, even while Christ walked on Solomon's porch. Why? Because guess what? During the feast of dedication, when they was dedicating to the temple, guess what? Christ walked out there to see, hey, what was going on and what was being taking place during those times, man. Right? First Chronicles chapter 28, verse 12 again.
The book of First Chronicles, chapter 28, verse 12. And the pattern of all that he had by the Spirit of the courts of the house of the Lord,
read.
And of all the chambers round about, of the treasuries of the house of God,
of the treasure of the house of God,
and of the treasuries of the dedicated things.
And the treasure of the dedicated things, man. You see how those things just correlate, man. These scriptures, they be lining up to the things that just for the next round, right? But read on.
Verse 13. Also for the courses of the priests and the Levites, and for all the work of the service of the house of the Lord, and for all the vessels of service in the house of the Lord.
Read.
He gave of gold by weight for things of gold.
He gave them gold by weight for the things of gold. Read.
For all instruments of all manner of service.
And see how Solomon studied ordering things right into the temple, right? Read.
Silver also for all instruments of silver by weight.
So he gave everything by silver what the weight's supposed to be on those things too, right? Read.
for all instruments of every kind of service, even the weight for the candlesticks of gold,
Read on.
and for their lamps of gold.
So guess what? So when you go in and see what King Solomon and he's explaining, and it shows how the temple being built, King David is giving him the understanding, piece by piece, on how things supposed to go, down to the weight on how these things supposed to be, man. Right? Read.
For their lamps of gold, by weight, for every candlestick.
For every candlestick, read.
And for the lamps thereof. And for the candlesticks of silver, by weight, both for the candlestick and also for the lamps thereof, according to the use of every candlestick.
So guess what? To every use of candlestick, I'm talking about down to the T. King David was ordering the temple on how things to go. Because guess what? Just like how the Most High God was giving things to Moses, and how he was supposed to set up the tabernacle congregation, how he was supposed to set up things that for the Levites to come in to do their administration, King David was setting up things after him for the people of Israel to come up into the temple to do their administration too. And for the Levites to do the administration. Guess what? And even setting up things right now to this day of the things of our job that some brothers and sisters, that's why the Lord say in the New Testament, he called it, instead of calling the Levites, he said porter. The things where brothers and sisters could be stepping up to do that very well could be done. That's why he called in the New Testament, you don't see him saying the Levites, he said porter. Those are the people that's going out doing the work, that's supposed to be ministering to God, supposed to be doing what the Lord told them to do as a nation, right? We're a nation of priests right now. Right? Read that up.
Verse 16. And by weight he gave gold for the tables of showbread, for every table, and likewise silver for the tables of silver. Also pure gold for the flesh hooks, and for the bowls, and the cups, and for the golden basins. He gave gold by weight.
He gave gold by weight. Everything was at a just weight, man. Every cup, every bowl. Hey, Solomon, he gave Solomon down to the T. Only thing he had to do was just do what he's supposed to do, man. You got all these people around about you, Solomon, and I'm finna set these things up around you so you can have these things together, right? Read.
For every basin, and likewise silver by weight, for every basin of silver. And for the altar of incense.
And for the altar of incense, read.
Refined gold by weight.
By weight. All these things, he measuring these things by weight to make sure that these things is in order with the Most High, right? Read.
And gold for the pattern of the cherubim, that spread out their wings and covered the ark of the covenant of the Lord.
So guess what? Even, I'm talking about, man, look. Like you say, these things that King David was covering to Solomon to order these things, guess what, man? That's why it's pivotal that even in every congregation, guess what, there's an Israel, guess what, when brothers in here and they leading the congregation, guess what, it's pivotal that brothers, guess what, do things in order. Because the Most High God is not playing for things out of order. Right? Sisters to be in order, because the Most High God ain't playing for things to be in order, man. I mean, out of order, because our God loves a just balance, ain't loves a just weight, man. And that's fair to us, right? Because the thing is, we the one that sinned against our God. He ain't sinned against us. We the one that chose this, man, right? Read on up.
Verse 19. All this said David, the Lord made me understand in writing by his hand upon me, even all the works of this pattern.
So all the pattern and all the works, guess what? The Lord gave it to King David for him to understand on how to get the temple right and to build the temple. The Lord gave all these things to King David, right? Read on.
And David said to Solomon, his son,
What do you say?
Be strong and of good courage.
So he told King Solomon, he said, be strong and be of good courage, man. Read on.
And do it.
And do what?
And do it.
And the Lord told King Solomon, King David told Solomon to do it, man. Right? Read.
Fear not, nor be dismayed, for the Lord God, even my God, will be with thee.
He said, don't be dismayed, because our God gonna be with you, man. Read.
Will be with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee, until thou hast finished all the work for the service of the house of the Lord.
So guess what? He's like, man, don't worry about none of that, man. That's why the Lord put this whole world up under submission. That's why the Lord sent King David to put the world up under submission, because he needed King Solomon to build a temple for him, right? But read on.
Verse 21. And behold, the courses of the priests and the Levites, even they shall be with thee for all the service of the house of God.
So guess what, man? Now when the Levites, that's why when we read that's why when we read earlier in First Chronicles chapter 23, how the Levites had to leave the tabernacle, and they ain't taking the tabernacle around anymore. Guess what the Levites' job was to do now? To help build the temple. Right? They job, not just the Levite, but the children of Israel, period. But you know, the Levite's job was just to stay back and just to do, you know what I'm saying, to praise the Most High and just to do this job alone. But now the Levite's job is now to go into, they still got their regular job, but now they got to step up and they got to build the temple right along with King Solomon too, right? Read on.
And there shall be with thee for all manner of workmanship, every willing, skillful man.
Every willing, skillful man, man. That's why I say, even the Levites, and guess what? And every willing, skillful man, read.
For any manner of service.
Any manner of service. Guess what? It was set up for King Solomon to have it set up for, guess what? Anything that need to be done, everybody's supposed to be stepping up to do it. Right? Read.
Also, the princes and all the people will be holy at thy commandments.
So guess what? Whatever you telling them to do to build this temple, guess what? They gonna be on one accord to do those things. But we know, guess what? That's the reason why when you see the split of the kingdom, why it is like it is. Because like what it said, it told them if you make their yokes easier, why? Because they just got finished building the temple. Us as a nation, we just got finished building the temple. So he said, if you be, that's why you were telling, like, look, Redbone, telling Redbone, look, if you be to these people, if you take the yoke off of them, the temple already built, right? So the only thing you got to do is just do what the Lord say. But if you don't, guess what? This kingdom be rent into pieces, and that's what happened, man. Right? Go ahead, huh?
Go to Sirach 30 and 1, man. This is heavy, man. What David was doing here is real heavy. He is laying the blueprint down, not to just Solomon his son, but to the whole nation, which we consider the sons at that time too. Because David being the king, like you said, he's showing the porters what to do, right? He's giving the understanding of the Levites right now about the congregation, the tabernacle of the congregation. And then in 20 and 1, he lets you know the courses of the priests and Levites, even they shall be with thee for all the service, because he has laid down a blueprint before he passed away. But this is what he's doing. Sirach 30 and 1.
The book of Sirach. The book of Sirach, chapter 30, verse 1. He that loveth his son causeth him oft to feel the rod, that he may have joy of him in the end.
That he may have joy in him in the end. Because you know the saying is what? Spare the rod, what spare the child, right? This is not basically going into what? Physically beating or whooping Solomon or the nation. But what is he doing? He's correcting the nation. Read verse 2, it'll show you.
He that chasteneth his son shall have joy in him, and shall rejoice of him among his acquaintances.
So this is what he's doing. He's chastening the nation as well as Solomon. Because 20, what did he say? And David said to Solomon, what? His son, be strong and of good courage. Like he told him in, what was that? In 26, told him to do it. Just do it, right? He is chastening him with the words of what he needs to do, right? Read on.
He that teacheth his son grieveth the enemy.
He do what?
Grieveth the enemy.
And that's what we're doing now. We're coming back into our heritage, our nation, and this is how we grieve our enemies, man. You think that's why they're so mad at Kyrie. That's why they're so mad at Ye. Because, and they damn sure mad at the Israelites, man. They just can't stop this movement. That's right? Because they see us out there, and we are teaching our sons. The Bible says, train up a child the way he should go, and when he's old, he what? He won't depart from the way. So this is what Solomon, this is David is doing. This is real heavy, man. Read on.
And before his friends, he shall rejoice of him.
Because when your nation or when your people doing what they supposed to do, man, they rejoice. David is sitting back like, I know my son gonna do what I tell him to do. He's gonna rejoice in that thing. Read on.
Though his father died.
Though his father what?
Though his father died.
David knew he was finna go, right? David knew, but David knew that he put his word in the 40 years of submission, not to go back into bull mess, but to keep Solomon charged, right? Read on.
though his father died.
Uh-huh.
Yet he as though he were not dead.
It was like David still around, man. Because he's keeping that charge. He solidified that into his son and to the nation, and that's what they did, man. Read on.
For he have left one behind that is like himself.
He said he left one behind like himself. He left Solomon. He charged Solomon. He gave him the proper necessities of what to do. Right? Read on.
While he lived, he saw and rejoiced in him.
Uh-huh.
And when he died, he was not sorrowful.
Because David would know he was gonna die a good death, knowing that he had charged his son, man. Think about it. When we put these laws back into our children's lives, man, we know that it's gonna be good. Coming up, we know a little bit of now, man. Shoot, he ain't no depart from this. He been doing it too long, right? Been doing these things too long. That's gonna grieve the enemy, but that's gonna make the Father happy, right? Looking at different steps and labels. It's gonna make us happy. It's gonna make Christ happy, and the most important, it's gonna make the Most High God happy, right? Read on.
He left behind him an avenger.
He left behind a what?
He left behind him an avenger.
David left behind an avenger. I know he gonna do the work. I know Solomon gonna do the work because I told him to do it, right? Right, read on.
Against his enemy.
Uh-huh.
And one that shall requite kindness to his friends.
So this is what David was doing at this time, man. Like I said, this is what we gotta start doing, man. Like we said, take from the good of our forefathers. We gotta start teaching our children, teaching this nation, bringing us back into the fold of what we have to do, man. That is gonna grieve our enemies, and that's what King David did this morning. Go ahead,
Be going on there, man. But like I was saying, and then after, like you say, after he ordered the temple and everything, now we were fighting for the temple. We were dedicating for the temple. We were doing all these things. Guess what? We rebuilding the temple. We did all these things to try to help keep that building together. But at the end of the day, our temple still lay flat. Why? Because guess what? We were breaking God's commands. Right? Lord can give us, He give us all these different things and different attributes of showing us how He loves us, but here we are. Israel, the northern tribe go off, southern tribe go off. We beg the Lord for forgiveness, captivity after captivity after captivity that He sent us to. But this captivity, guess what? He started up from zero. He started up from zero. But guess what? And a lot of us, if we gonna get our mind off of zero instead of increasing, guess what? You've been in the truth 2, 3, 4 years. That zero should be at least up to 10, 15 or something. Increasing in the Most High, right? And getting away from this world. Because we got to think of the percentage. How much you are in the world and how much you are in the truth. Right?
And we know right now what's today's temple? Our spirits. So even like we said, we always correlating these things. Even like what Ak is doing in this class, we correlating the past temple to even right now in today's temple, man. Give me 1 Corinthians.
Hold on.
Jump
in the gun. Jump in the gun. I know he won't. Go to Jeremiah chapter 7 right quick, then we go to 1 Corinthians. Jeremiah chapter 7 and verse 3.
Book of Jeremiah, chapter 7, verse number 3. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, amend your ways and your doings, and I will cause you to dwell in this place.
He said He will cause us to dwell in this place, right? It's going in Jerusalem, right? Read. Read on.
Trust ye not in lying words, saying, the temple of the Lord.
The temple of the Lord, read.
The temple of the Lord. The temple of the Lord are these. For if ye thoroughly amend your ways and your doings, and if you would thoroughly execute judgment between a man and his neighbor.
So guess what, man? That's why the Lord told us, man, look, this right here, we're going to correlate these things into how the Lord was looking, because we put the temple over the Most High. Because we forgot what the office was. We forgot what the administration was. That's why you see Christ go in Matthew chapter 21 right quick. That's why you see Christ going into the temple and doing what? Acting a fool. Matthew chapter 21 verse 12. Because He gave us something beautiful He gave us something beautiful and nice, man. Pleasant to see. Guess what, man? Guess what? All the tribes can come there and worship. Then it's just like, hey. But then he left it over there. He left it. Guess what? And Judah was doing administration and was trying to do right. But guess what? Judah started doing went off too. It went out too. Went out. Judah, Benjamin, Levi went out too. And that's what we get out of this. Go to Matthew chapter 21, verse 12.
The book of Matthew, verse 12.
Mm-hmm.
And Yahushua went into the temple of God
Read.
and cast out all of them that sold.
Read.
And bought in the temple. And overthrew the table.
Read.
Of the money changers. And the seats of them that sold doves.
So because what they was doing, you had a sin, guess what? Bring me 2/3 of dove. They cost $250 over here. This right here, this goat over here cost $75. You can buy your goat over here, and we have one of these people to sacrifice for you. We can get you a couple of turtle doves. They cost $250. And they, you can go and sacrifice them up. Christ looked at that mother like, dang, y'all really doing this, huh? Right? Because they made the temple of none effect. Right? After all the ordering and the steps that was supposed to be laid out for the temple to be done, guess what, man? We made things to none effect. God give us something. It's none affect us. He give us something else, none affect us. He give us something else, none affect us. It's like, when are we gonna get to our mindset to change, man? So guess what, man? Read on.
Verse 13. And said unto them, it is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves.
So guess what? And if we're supposed to call God's house a house of prayer, and that's how it's supposed to be. But they made it a den of thieves. Why? Because they was extorting the people for their money, man. They was going in there selling these turtle doves and all these things. Guess what, man? Hey, man, these purple turtle doves, man. This right here, $25. This cast weight about 25 cents. They was doing all kind of stuff up in the temple. Just imagine. Right? And this is how their mindset. So the Lord said, you know what? Y'all break my temple down. Guess what? This is what I'm going to put y'all temple at right here, man. When we walking in these days right now. 1 Corinthians chapter 6. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and 19.
Oh, even like what Captain Jeremiah was going into, let's see what the temple is today. Let's get that real quick. What I can look for is
6 and 19.
3 and 19. Just get straight to the point. Because even like today, these are similitudes for now the temple. Like we said, we no longer have a temple. When was the temple destroyed, any brother?
70 AD.
70 AD. How many times was it destroyed? Twice. What was the first time it was destroyed? What year? Who knows the year? But you gotta know that thing, man. That's secular history, man. Well known. Like even what Captain Yara said, 586 BC and 70 AD. So a lot of times, Christians, especially apologetics, they don't understand that the curses are reoccurring. Well, brothers and sisters, jot that down. But read this.
The book of 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you?
So we are the temple of the Most High God, and the Most High God wants to dwell in us. But you think He want to dwell in brothers and sisters that spirits is not right, that have that spirit of cheat, lying, deceit? Read on.
If any man defile the temple of God.
Read that again from the top. 1 Corinthians 3 and 16.
Yeah. The book of 1 Corinthians chapter 3.
Yes, sister.
Oh,
because I know I called 1 Corinthians
3 and 19.
3 and 19. I mean 6 and 19.
Oh, that's why
we're going to go to both of them.
Okay.
Yeah, both of them.
Okay. The book of 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16.
Uh-huh.
Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you?
So this precept is letting us know that we are the temple of the Most High God. Man, read on.
If any man defile the temple of God,
Like how they was doing during the time of Christ. Read on.
him shall God destroy.
Now we look at that on the corner level, but it touches on the spiritual level, man. Like we're saying, going outside of the guidelines, breaking the commandments, being out of order. Most High God is going to destroy brothers and sisters, man, if you're not getting your temple back in order. Jump over to 1 Corinthians 6 and 19. You'll finish it out.
For the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are.
Which temple? What?
Which temple ye are.
Read on. Is that it? Jump over to 6 and 19. You found what you're looking for?
The book of 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19.
Uh-huh.
What know ye not? that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which
Read.
is in you,
Which is in you. Read.
which ye have of God,
Mm-hmm.
and ye are not are your own.
Read that again.
What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you,
Which is in you.
which ye have of God,
Uh-huh.
and ye are not your own.
And we are not our own. So guess what, man? Well, you can thinking that you doing something, but guess what? That spirit is that spirit in you bearing witness of whatever spirit that you got. Because there is a voice, then you say, man, no, I ain't finna do that. But then you got another voice telling you that you should do it. Yeah. It's a voice. Why is you talking to this voice in your mind? Because everybody talk to their voice in their mind. We can try to act like we don't, but we do. Some people talk out loud to their voice in their mind. But it's multiple conversations going on in your mind, right? And God dwelling in us, man, right? To try to make sure that we stay in order, man. But read on.
For ye are bought with a price.
Because now that we bought with the price, because Christ gave himself for us, man, right? Read.
Therefore, glorify God in your body
Mm-hmm.
and in your spirit.
So guess what, man? Now, guess what? There's a whole bunch of temples walking around, man. And God has destroyed a whole bunch of temples in this mud. He ain't just get what the Lord said, y'all want to do my temple like this? There were all y'all temples then.
That's right.
Every one of us temples. So that's why we got to make sure we put in order. How King David put order in his temple, we got to start putting order in our own temples the same way, man. Guess what? Watching the things that we say, the things that we do, having a just weight in our thoughts, in our balances, in our prayers, in our arms, in our fasting. We have to have a just weight in the things that we have, man. This is why you do all, we read all this thing on how King David left with Solomon to order the temple, and guess what? And we failed miserably, man, over and over again, man. But at the end of the day, when we order in our temple, guess what? We gonna take our time to sit and think about the things that we need to do to order the temple that's in us? Is we gonna sit here and think about these things, man? Because this is our job right now, man. To make sure that we set our temple in order, man, right?
Go ahead.
Right?
Jeremiah 7, right quick.
Yeah, we can back it.
Start at verse 8, man. Verse 8, man. This is how you define it. This is how we define our temple, which is our body. No, you gonna start. You gonna go ahead then. Yeah, for sure. Go back to 7 and 3, man.
No, start at verse 6. That's what we're
Oh, okay.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 7, verse 6.
So guess what? When we read about the temple in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and 16, in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, in verse 19 and 20, when we read about those temples, guess what? That's is in us. This is how you defile that temple that's in us right here. Right? Read that out.
If ye oppress not the strangers, the fatherless, and the widow, and shed not innocent blood in this place, neither walk after other gods, to your hurt.
To your what?
To your hurt.
Because guess what? When we doing these things, guess what? We'll be doing these things to our own hurt. Not the temple that was built. Right? But we was doing these things to our own hurt. Right? Read.
Then I will cause you to dwell in this place, in the land that I gave to your fathers, forever and ever. Behold, ye trust in lying words that cannot profit.
That's one way to defile our temple and keep it dirty and unclean. Trusting in lying words. Trusting in unprofitable things, right? Like we say, the world just did Thanksgiving. These are things that are not profitable to us. These are lying words. Read on.
Will ye steal, murder, and commit adultery?
This is how we dirty our temples right now. Stealing, murder, committing adultery, what else?
And swear falsely,
Uh-huh.
and burn incense to Baal.
Basically, when you do these things, you are giving your life over to somebody else, which is the devil, man. Read on.
And walk after other gods, whom ye know not,
By doing these holidays and all these things. Read on.
and come and stand before me
Now
in this house.
Now, I'm going to tell you, this is the Most High get gangster right here, man. I'm going to tell you, the Most High, boy, you read this and you be like, damn, you done pissed him off, right? This is why Christ went and lifted them tables up in the, because you go do these things in my house?
That's right.
You gonna come in here, you mean you gonna bring your filthy self up in this congregation knowing you got a spirit on you, knowing that you ain't in the right spirit, and then you gonna keep that spirit on you?
How dare you?
You're not gonna let the scriptures win? How dare you? You're not gonna let these scriptures get you right? You gonna stay in that little wicked little attitude that you got? You gonna stay ugly with the ugly face every time somebody say something? Shit out, man. You know what I'm saying? You gonna actually do that in the Lord's house that He built for us that was clean? All the things that He showed to Solomon how to precisely build this temple, and you think you ain't gotta keep these laws precisely like He gave it to us? You coming to the Sabbath bringing a burden, bearing a burden? Come on, man. Most I read 10. That's tough.
And come and stand before me in this house?
You come and stand before me in this house. You want to do that? I'm telling you, this is what you want to do that shit. I'm gonna get your ass anyway. But you coming hurt? You go home with that mess, and I'm gonna still get you. But don't bring that mess in here, man. In this house, read on.
Which is called by my name. It say we are delivered to do all these abominations.
See, and that's what we do. We trying to make excuses for doing these damn abominations. Well, I was out the spirit because he was out the spirit. Nobody give a damn.
That's right.
You gotta stay in the spirit because he out the spirit.
That's right.
Oh, well, she looked at me, so I looked at her funny. Nobody give a damn. Come on, man. That's some more. He get gangster right here, boy. Maria, read on.
Is this house, which is called by my name, become a den of robbers in your eyes?
Mm-hmm.
Behold, even I have seen it, saith the Lord.
So this is that's a precept to that Matthew 21 and 13, because he said it was written, right? When he said it was written, making my house a den of thieves and robbers. That's the precept right there. But that's what you doing, man. You making this house of none effect, man. And we can't do that. We got to make sure we clean ourselves. We wipe off our feet. We wipe off our bodies. That we stay with the whole armor on, man. To clean our bodies, to clean ourselves. You know, you can't come before the Lord filthy, man, with a filthy rag, man.
That's right.
You want to clean that road, which is you, man. Go ahead, Al.
Let's go to Matthew chapter 11. Verse 28. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28.
Book of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 28.
Mm-hmm.
Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest.
So guess what, man? The things that we go through, man, we got to start learning to lean on our God, man. Because guess what, man? You ain't gonna. A lot of times you be trying to call brothers and sisters and try to brothers they can't give you no rest, man. The Most High God the one that be able to give you rest, man. Right? Read.
Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart.
He said, take my yoke. He said, look at what I went through, man. He said, but I'm still meek and lowly in heart, right? Read.
And ye shall find rest unto your soul.
Read.
For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
And guess what? That's why he said the commandments is not grievous, man. That's why we must, guess what? How the Most High God ordered and took care of his temple and made sure that the thing was laid in order. This is how we must do with our own temple, man. Setting our stuff in order, man, so we can be able to be blessed by the Most High, man. And with that, we're going to say shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you, brothers and sisters, for tuning in, man. Like and share the video. That should help us push this truth around the four corners of the earth. Law of the day is Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 16. Like I say, man, hope brothers and sisters got edified today. We always say we're going to bring out a law. And the law. Read this.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verse 16. Ye shall not tempt the Lord your God, as ye tempted him in Massah.
So guess what, man? We should not tempt the Lord our God, man. So when we go to our God for prayers, don't be these foolish prayers and all this. No, go to our God, man. Hey, you know what you really need, man.